Strong settings impact your plot because you're using them as more than a backdrop. If you can pick up your story and move it to another place or time, you're not using your setting effectively. So today I want to talk about setting as obstacles, how to make your environment impact your plot. People, governments, weather, and time are all aspects of setting you can transform into obstacles your characters have to overcome. This video is going to give you some ideas on how to do that. This is Ignited Ink Writing, a channel dedicated to helping authors like you transform your writing so it lingers with your readers, because writing that lingers gets remembered and recommended to others. I'm Caitlin Burvey, editor and writer. Let's start with confining your characters for tension and conflict. When your characters can't leave a space to escape an argument, a situation, or a person, that setting has become an obstacle. There are different forms of confinement. This can be anything from a long car ride to being buried alive. Regardless of the situation, most people don't like feeling confined. It gives them a surge of adrenaline, making them feel anxious and jittery. Some people try and suppress these emotions to get through that situation. Others act out because of them. How your character responds to being confined says a lot about them. And this is something you can use to show growth over the course of the story. How they respond to being confined with a certain person in the beginning should be different from how they respond at the end, unless the point is to show that they haven't really changed. When these scenes get more interesting is when they are specific to your character instead of generic situations that pretty much anyone would feel confined in. For example, no one is going to like being kidnapped and threatened. But some people love dogs. So if your character feels trapped whenever a dog is approaching them, that's a unique situation. Maybe your character has recently been attacked by dogs, or has never been around them and just doesn't know what to do, so it kind of freaks them out. That's a unique situation that you can use to confine your character. So take a moment to think about your main character, or a few of them. Ask yourself what situations, what settings they would feel confined in. Create a little list of 3 to 5. Then pick one and write that scene. See how your character deals with this confinement. Do they overcome this obstacle or give in to their panic? You can confine your characters to create conflict, both internal and external, and to keep your story moving. Next, I want to talk about challenging your characters with their environment. There's an old story cliche where a character says, "Well, at least it can't get any worse," and then it starts raining. While I don't recommend using that exact cliche, I do recommend using the weather as a potential obstacle in your story. Now, this doesn't have to be some big, grand event. It can be. Maybe your sailors are caught in a hurricane. But it can also be more subtle. If your character is really vain and her hair keeps blowing in her face because of the wind at the cafe on a date, that's an obstacle for her. Or maybe your character is wearing high heels and they have to navigate an icy patch of the street. Or your character could be dealing with depression and all of a sudden there's a week of overcast days. Like when you're looking for ways to confine your characters, I recommend looking for ways to use weather that are unique for your character, that might not be a challenge for everyone, but are definitely an obstacle for them. And don't forget that there are other components to the environment. It's not just the weather. The physical infrastructure could also create conflict and obstacles for your character. If they need to get to work on time, but the bridge they always take is closed for construction, that's an obstacle. If they're inside, but lightning and thunder or construction is constantly interrupting their conversation, that's an obstacle. So use all aspects of your setting to make things worse for your characters. Another piece of the environment that can be really effective when it comes to creating setting-based obstacles is distance. Whole tropes are built around this, especially in speculative fiction. In space operas, spaceships are always almost out of fuel between planetary systems. In epic fantasies, the characters often have to go on a long journey through lots of different types of lands to reach their goal. But you don't always have to have these huge distances to use distance as an obstacle. It could be something as simple as your character reaching to set their coffee cup on the table and missing. And now the cup shatters and they burn their foot. Or it lands on the power cord and they lose that big work presentation they've been working on all weekend. That's one way that distance, even though it was little, affected the story and became an obstacle. Also, make your characters work for their goals. If your thief needs to steal something, don't put it on the first floor, put it on the 17th floor. Make them have to go the distance, work harder to get what they want. Look for ways you can utilize distance to create obstacles in your story. Now let's transition to society as a threat or hindrance. When it comes to setting, other people can create the biggest obstacles. Again, whole subgenres, tropes, and cliches are built around this. Think of all the stories about characters overcoming their station, their place in society. Now take a moment to think about your character's role in their society and how you might use that as an obstacle. Are they a peasant in love with the prince, or vice versa? Are they someone who's just committed a crime and needs to escape before they get caught? There are lots of ways you can use society itself to create conflict and obstacles. One of those is if your character is at odds with a culture or tradition. This could be because your character just doesn't know the rules, they're new. It could be because they don't believe in them and are refusing to follow them. It could also be because they physically can't complete the task that is being asked of them. An example of this is How to Train Your Dragon, both the book series and the movies. In these series, the main character Hiccup is trying to convince people that dragons are more than monsters. But his society traditionally believes that dragons are monsters that need to be destroyed. And he believes dragons are just other animals, and they can work with them and train them and partner with them to make their society better. And then there are wars. Armies, rogue soldiers, lack of resources are just a few of the obstacles that are caused by wars. If there's a war happening at the same time of your story, whether your characters are directly involved or not, that will impact them. It will create obstacles for them. You have built-in conflict and obstacles. Don't shy away from that. Use the society component of your setting to create obstacles. I want to leave you with why an editor recommends using setting as obstacles. When you transform your setting into an obstacle, things happen. Characters are forced to make decisions. The plot advances. Your setting becomes more interesting and engaging because it's doing something in your story. It's not just in the background. That said, you don't have to make setting an obstacle in every scene or every chapter. Look for situations where it flows naturally with your story, and times when maybe you don't have another form of conflict being featured. A strong setting influences your story and leaves an impact on your reader. So what are ways you've used setting as obstacles in your writing? Share them in the comments below. And for more videos on setting and other aspects of writing, subscribe to Ignited Ink Writing, a channel dedicated to helping writers like you transform your writing so it lingers with readers. Because writing that lingers gets remembered and recommended to others. I'm Caitlin Burvey, editor and writer. To find out more about me, go to www.ignitedinkwriting.com. There you will also find a free guide on how to build strong settings. And now it's your turn to confine your characters, to play with weather and distance, and to transform your society into a threat to ignite your ink.